Hello folks, and a warm welcome. You're tuned in to my meditation, the Outdoors series. My name's Guy Cross, and I'll be introducing you to some interesting people with some interesting ways of using the outdoors to help sustain a healthy frame of mind. With being an outdoor lover myself, and using the outdoors to take care of my own mental health, I've always been curious as to how other people use outdoor hobbies and activities to take care of themselves, and that curiosity led me to the birth of this podcast series. My guests will talk about their favourite outdoor hobby, and we'll go into depth of how it helps them find peace of mind. Hopefully one of, if not many of the hobbies within this series will help you, or at the very least inspire you. And that's the whole aim of these podcasts, to fill you with ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of before, and to hear some positive, encouraging, real-life stories from my guests. Sometimes, hearing someone else's perspective on a hobby or activity gives you a fresh new way of looking at it, which can't be a bad thing, right? So without further ado, let's meet this week's guest. Hello everybody. So today I'm with Nicky Jones, who's a good friend of mine. She lives in the foothills of Snowdonia National Park here in North Wales. She's got a vast background in health and social care, having worked with people with drug and alcohol addiction, homelessness and mental health issues. She loves getting involved in charity work, and as well as juggling other part-time jobs when needs must. She's currently doing a master's degree at Goldsmith University in London, which we'll talk about in a minute. And she enjoys many things about the outdoors, and we'll be focusing on some of them today also, as well as her knowledge in psychology. So hello Nicky, nice to meet you today.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. So just to let the listeners know, we're actually recording this a little bit differently today. Nicky's brought me out into a little forest here near where she lives. We're sat next to a lovely little river, and just looking at all the bluebells and all the birds are whistling. I'm sure you can hear that. So usually I'm doing this recording remotely with people over the phone, but today it's nice to catch up with Nicky, my friend, anyway. And because things have kind of relaxed a little bit in Wales, we've decided to hook up and do it just as sun's setting and all the birds are singing. It's pretty nice, isn't it?
It's really lovely.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me here.
You're welcome.
So yeah, do you want to just explain about your degree to begin with, like what degree you're doing and all of that jazz?
Yeah, so I did neuropsychology as my undergraduate degree, and now I'm studying a master's in the psychology of the arts, neuroaesthetics and creativity. So the arts and creativity, quite self-explanatory. Neuroaesthetics is quite a new field, and it's looking at how the brain perceives and responds to the arts. So that's music, dance, literature and art. And my specific interest in learning about this is to be able to use that in a therapeutic way. So understanding how the arts can be used to help people overcome sort of challenging things in their life.
Yeah, cool. And did you think about, is that something you've done in your past work? Is that things you've touched on in your kind of care sector? And
yeah, definitely. So that's it sort of seems like an unintended accident, but when I look back there is a thread that runs through. Yeah. So I'm really passionate about wanting to help other people and just try and make a difference to people's lives, because I've done a lot of that with myself, and so one of the things that I noticed, especially when I worked with people with drug and alcohol addiction, is it's very difficult sometimes, especially with trauma, to talk about how you feel or talk about certain experiences. Yeah. And I facilitated group workshops, and within those workshops, so when I was planning the workshop, depending on what topic we might be looking at self-esteem or anger, issues around the addiction, and I would bring different activities in to be able to look at those things to get them to think about how those things had happened in their life and how to change them. And I noticed that the most profound insight that the residents got was when I brought something in that was to do with the arts. So I'm saying the arts as a bit of an umbrella term, basically. Yeah, sure. But what happened was so we would do certain things, literature, drawing, music was very powerful. And when I used those types of activities within my workshops, people really seem to get the most out of it, rather than just that standard, how do you feel? How is that a problem for you? You know, the classic approach. people seem to be able to push through that barrier that made them unable to talk about something, and they were able to express it in a different way.
Yeah.
And just found that could be really helpful.
Yeah.
And then I was going to do my degree in neuropsychology anyway to advance my own sort of knowledge and advance my career, and I came across neuroaesthetics in my third year, so it was an optional module that I could take, and my dissertation project ended up being in neuroaesthetics. It was on art therapy, and like I said, it's a very new field, so I'd never heard of it before. And then if I link the dots, it's almost like I've done it the other way around. Instead of learning about the academic and theory side first and then going to apply it, I was already applying it without really understanding why it or how it worked. And then since then, I've now gone on to go from starting to use it without really knowing why it was so effective, to understanding now why and how it is effective, to now studying that further. So the masters that I'm on it's the only course in the world that currently teaches this subject.
Okay. Wow. And you've just you've also been studying before this as well, haven't you? Not long ago you were doing, wasn't it another degree?
Yeah. So that was my undergraduate degree in neuropsychology. Yeah, so you've been pretty busy. Yeah, and to get this podcast done today, it's been pretty difficult, isn't it? Because you've been under a bit of pressure at the minute. Yeah, sorry about that.
No.
I had to pencil you in.
You've made up for it from bringing me here anyway. I mean, like, I'm struggling to concentrate on this podcast because it's the beauty surrounding us is so nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
just
it's
all
lovely.
The flowers and the birds singing. I'm sure that everyone can hear it. Yeah, so let's get on to the outdoors. How did you get into the outdoors? Was that something from a young age, or was it a bit later on in life for you?
It was something from a young age, but not in a way where I appreciated it. So because I grew up in North Wales, I grew up in Holyhead, just off Anglesey, so I was surrounded by coastline, by beaches, and I spent my childhood on those beaches. You know, me and my friends, summer holidays, weekends, we would all go to the beach, but that was just what you did because that's what was there. I didn't appreciate it for what it was. It was just where we hung out, because I guess if you're in a city, you go and hang out, you know, in city places, and if this is where you live, that's just where you go. So it wasn't, I'd say, in terms of getting interested in the outdoors as something that I enjoyed and appreciated. Yeah. It's funny because it actually took me going away to going abroad, traveling, and it wasn't until I got home that I actually realised, whoa, I've just been, you know, to all these absolutely incredible places, but look where I live. And it was almost like I saw my surroundings through different eyes. It was exactly the same as what I'd always seen, but I hadn't really seen it, if that makes sense.
No, that's exactly the same for me. Like when I grew up, I was like, it's just where you are, you know, surrounded by beautiful nature and everything. But I always wanted to be in a town or a city because it was what I didn't have, I guess. But then when you, like you said, you take yourself away and then you come back to your place of home and you realise how beautiful it is. You kind of, like you say, you see it with new eyes, don't you? Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what happened to me in a way. And that's why I appreciate my homeland so much more now. Compared to when I, you know, before I went away and all of that. I mean, everywhere you visit when you travel is amazing, isn't it? You know, obviously that's why you go and do these kind of things, but it does make you realise how special your place is as well when you come back.
Definitely.
You know. So was there like a pivotal moment when you got into the outdoors, or was it just like a natural kind of thing? I know you just said, like, you know, it's kind of where you grew up and all of that, but was there like a moment when you really thought, you know?
Yeah, I guess you could say that did start for me abroad. So that sort of passion or interest or appreciation for nature and, you know, beauty really did come from when I first travelled. So my very first trip it wasn't me actually going backpacking, which I did a little bit later. I went to Borneo. So it was a charity expedition that was through a job that I had at the time. They were quite a big company, so they had these optional things that you could sign up for. And so I signed up for this trip to Borneo, which was basically living in a rainforest for 2 weeks and building an orangutan rehabilitation tracking centre. And to say that was an experience that, you know, was totally different from anything else that I'd ever known would be an understatement.
Yeah.
I didn't even eat proper food. I lived off chicken dippers and jack of potatoes, and all of a sudden I was, you know, living in a jungle, washing in a river and sleeping in a hammock between two trees and being fed sort of local, like, Indonesian, Malaysian food. And yeah, it was just a total, you know, I couldn't have been further from what I knew if I tried.
Yeah.
And that I guess was when it started for me. That's when I realized, whoa, there's this life out there that is just waiting to be discovered, and I just got so hungry for it.
Yeah.
And it was after that, so that, like I said, was just a 2-week charity trip that I signed up through work. And then when I came home, I just thought, how can I go and get that experience again?
Yeah.
And so I think it was a year later, or maybe 18 months later, that I bought a one-way ticket to Australia, and ended up being away just under a year and a half, backpacking in Australia for a year and then 3 months in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And it was those experiences, traveling and just being in the outdoors and exploring, and I'd say that was the pivotal moment for me, that that was it. I've never not been able to now chase nature, chase the outdoors, chase that sort of sense of adventure.
Yeah. And so, like, when you said before about coming back from a trip and you realised what you had at home, was that when you came back from Australia?
Yeah.
It was then when you realised, like, wow, actually it's beautiful where I am.
Yeah. So I remember I used to live in a village just outside Bangor, and I worked in Bangor, and every single day I'd go to work, and on the way home, the route that I would take, I would pull off a slip road onto the A55 and drive home. And I did that every day. And then I did that same drive when I got home after being away for 15 months. And I pulled out of the slip road, and you come up over this brow of a hill, and I just looked ahead of me, and I remember my jaw dropping and my mouth was open in shock, because ahead of me was just this beautiful span of mountain range, the Snowdonia mountain range.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that.
Homeland.
But I obviously had seen it because I'd driven that every single day to and from work, but I hadn't opened my eyes and looked at what was in front of me. And then when I came home and I did that drive that one time and I saw it, and I was like, how did I not see this before?
Yeah. No, I had exactly the same experience coming back, exactly the same, but it was coming on the A55 by Colwyn Bay, and you just come past Mochtra on your left hand side, and then that's when you first see the mountains behind, like, our little village and the Conway Valley. And I just looked at that, and I used to do that every day, back and forth to work, and I just didn't think about it, and then I saw it that day, just coming that first time. I was like, wow, that's like, why didn't I see that before? Like, you just said exactly the same.
And that's what you think. You think, how did I not see this before? And you kind of think, what else do we do in our day-to-day lives that is right there in front of us, and we just completely overlook it?
And that's kind of like the mindfulness meditation thing, isn't it? It's like being aware of what's in front of you right there. Because most of the time, like you were saying, if you're going to work, you're probably thinking about how your day is going to go, or what you've got to do after work, or your just mind's not on what's right in front of you, is it?
Yeah.
But if you're looking at what's there, like now, that's what I'm saying, just sat here as we are now, just looking around, I'm quite quite happy here, to be fair, like. But anyways, let's move on to what's your meditation now? What's your favorite kind of outdoor hobby, activity, interest to kind of, that helps you?
I've had to think about this, because this might be a little bit different to some of the other guests that you've had on, because they might have a very specific hobby, like paddleboarding, like cycling, like hiking. Yeah. Whereas I think for me, I do all sorts of different things, but for me to put a label on, I guess, what it is to say that I get from my adventure, for my meditation, spoiler, is I wanted to say that it's basically that. So that was the way that I wanted to describe it, was adventure. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by adventure is, I guess, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, because and it's more your perception of adventure, not necessarily, because when some people might think of being adventurous or adventure, they might think of what I said, like living in a rainforest for 2 weeks, or
yeah, something huge, like a big adventure.
Yeah. Whereas for me, I can get that perception of adventure where I feel like I've had my meditation or had my fix, even just like this place where we're sat now is a perfect example. So we're next to a cycle path, but the woods come off it, and you can take these little trails, and I walk along that cycle path so much, it's right there. And this was a brand new place that I found just last week. So it's that sense of, you don't have to get on a plane and go to the other side of the world or go on this big crazy adventure to be able to still get that fix, to still get that you found a new place. And that's what it is for me. So it's using the outdoors, one, to discover new places, but also to put myself out of my comfort zone. And that's how I use it as a tool, I guess, for my mental health, or as meditation. That's the way that I would say the comfort zone. And again, comfort zone that's fluid. What's my comfort zone at one phase in my life could be, could expand really out there, and it could be that going outside my comfort zone would be something really extreme. But at other times in my life, when I might have been quite low, that comfort zone shrinks. And actually what I'm doing that seems extreme to me isn't necessarily that big of a deal, but it is to me at that time. So I'd say that my hobby, or the way that I use the outdoors, is, I'm going to umbrella term it as adventure. But like I said, that adventure could encompass a lot of different things depending on where I'm at and what it is that I need at that time.
Obviously, because we're mates, we're good friends and stuff, like I know a lot about you, and I know you do a lot of different things, like hoop, pole, you like trying all sorts of things, don't you?
You might want to expand on hoop.
Swimming in lakes that are frozen over and all that, you quite enjoy doing. No, you do some, what I'm trying to say is you do, you might need to expand on hoop. Okay, so a hoop is like a big metal ring that you hang off a tree, basically, and you do kind of, go on, you explain.
I love hoop. So it's basically,
it's a good job this is an 18 plus podcast.
You said it. It's called aerial hoop, or lyra, and it's basically it's like a circus act. That's where people might have come across
circus acrobats, I guess, isn't it?
But it's becoming much more mainstream now, so you can go and find a studio where you can learn to do aerial hoop. So it's big metal ring, and you just learn to do different
maneuvers, like moves, and
there's a little bit of a dance element to it. That's what Guy meant by hoop.
That's hooping. But no, you like to try all sorts of different things, like, to be fair, and that's what I'm trying to say to the listeners, is that it's not just one specific thing that you enjoy, it's all sorts of stuff, and it's keeping you focused at that moment, isn't it, basically? Like you're putting your full concentration thing into that. So
I guess that, again, because I've often thought, I wish I could be more consistent with something, and actually, because I'm like, now this, now that, and I do like to try new things, and that again comes into that adventure side.
Yeah, definitely. Because again, another one, cycling. You took on cycling quite seriously at one point, didn't you? You cycled from North Wales here to Cardiff, was it? For charity. And
did a few.
So you took that, and you were part of a women's cycle club as well at that time. Just looking at some starlings just swimming over, flying over. Sorry, I'm getting totally distracted because the sun's just going down now. It's getting a little bit dark, and you can probably hear all the birds singing their little hearts out. It's ace.
All the bluebells are out at the minute as well while we're recording this. It's just so beautiful. It's like a carpet of just blue.
Got our little blankets over our legs. Nicky's brought us some blankets and some little camping chairs.
It's so cute, isn't it?
Up here. It's dead nice. Okay, back to the programme. So the next question I've got for you is, has there been any time in your life where you felt like really quite low and not very good in life, and you've helped a certain activity to kind of get you through it. And if you've got a little kind of story that goes around that subject.
I have. So again, it starts back again before I went backpacking, and it's one of them again where, sorry,
right,
we got a bit distracted because there's just some people walking past
and that. Don't worry, like I said, this one's like a different way of recording, so there might be a little bit of interruptions here and there, but no, there's just a few people walking past. They've disappeared now. We're back to the birds. It's all good. It's all good. I think they're just wondering what we're doing, sat in the forest with some microphones, to be honest with you. So it's a little bit strange, but hey ho.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So back to the story. Yeah, it was. I'd say that traveling was that first thing. So to say I was low again is probably a bit of an understatement. I was at a time in my life where.
Is this in Australia now?
No, so this is just before. So this precedes me going to Australia. Yeah, so just I had therapy for the first time when I was 20, and it was just after that I then went traveling. I'd probably say that that's when my life really started. So I had a very dysfunctional childhood, really difficult upbringing. There was a lot of trauma, different types of abuse. I had, in response to that, in my teenage years, I had quite severe eating disorder and self-harmed. So all of that was in response to that, and a lot of people at the time, I'd go as far as to say the majority of people that knew me had no idea about that, because I very much kept that hidden. I was very outgoing, I was very confident, and it was all this mask to really hide
it, basically. Yeah,
absolutely, what was going on inside. And I was extremely troubled. I was extremely low. I was suicidal. I thought about that a lot. I had very low self-esteem. I had a lot of self-loathing. It was bad.
Yeah.
And at the time when I went for therapy, if someone had asked me at that time, where do you see yourself by the time you're 25? If I was to give them an honest answer, I would have said, I'll either have been sectioned or I'll have killed myself.
Really? Wow.
It was, so I guess the initial turning point potentially was that trip to Borneo, because it was the first thing that showed me that life can actually be pretty amazing.
Pretty nice.
Yeah, it can also be awful, and I experienced that firsthand. I know the depths of how dark this world can be, but that was the first thing that also showed me just how amazing it can be. And it's not like you can have one or the other, it's both of those things exist, the light and the dark.
Yin and yang, basically.
Exactly. And so it was after I don't know if I could say that triggered me to think that there might be more to life, and my life didn't have to take the direction that I thought it was heading in, or whether there was maybe some other things at the time as well, and it was just me getting older and realizing that a lot of the things that had happened to me when I was a child were out of my control. But now that I was an adult and starting to live my own life and forming my own identity, it didn't have to carry on that way. I was now in control of that.
Yeah.
And the things that I was doing to myself and the ways that I was hurting myself were almost a continuation of how others had hurt me. And because of that, it was a realization that I was in control of stopping that now, whereas I wasn't before.
Yeah.
So when I went for my counselling and when I went for therapy to look at all of those things, it was after that I then went to Australia. And I'd say that was when the real work, or when the real healing started. Obviously the counselling and the therapy was the initial catalyst for that journey, but it was the travelling and the doing these amazing things and meeting people and realising that maybe I wasn't as bad of a person as I thought that I was.
Yeah.
That's when the journey really began.
Yeah, so taking yourself out of your environment almost as well. Yeah, like taking yourself out of your usual life in a way, and you've totally kind of taken yourself and gone and done these amazing things, you know, and it's opened up your eyes. And
exactly that. And when you're stuck in your life and the world around you and everything that you do day in, day out, you don't get that perspective that it can change or that it could actually be different.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, when I traveled and when I've traveled since, and even, like I said, not even, you know, I know I keep saying traveling, but not even just going away, even I've found a way to now still to get that same experience, you know, at home, or like I say, 10 minutes down the road, and finding a new beautiful place. You get away, but you're coming across things that you wouldn't come across in your day-to-day life. You're doing things that you wouldn't do in your day-to-day life, and it starts, something inside you starts to light up, and you start to believe, or I started to believe that actually I can do this, you know, I can do anything I want if I put my mind to it and I work hard enough and I take those steps to make that come about, then good things can happen.
Yeah, and they generally do, don't they, when you're traveling? I don't want to be a travel changed me kind of person, but it really does open your eyes, though, doesn't it? There's no denying the fact that it kind of,
absolutely,
and it can help with what you are after, basically, relief of mental health and wellness and peace of mind and everything.
And I don't think, I wasn't aware, it's only looking back that I can now see that that's what it did for me. It wasn't like I chose to do that with the intention that it was going to do that. It's that I realized that that's what it could do. So then I learned that it was a tool that I could use. And again, I really want to emphasize, you don't have to, you know, pack your bag, get on a plane and buy a one-way ticket to somewhere. You can learn how to do that in your own day-to-day life without having to do it in the same way. It's just that was what showed me.
Like you don't have to go extreme. Like you said, we've walked 10 minutes from your house to here, and you've never been here before, and you found this amazing, it's almost like a pebbled beach next to the river with all these amazing wildflowers, you know, and you're getting the same kind of buzz off that as you would be if you were sat somewhere in Australia, kind of, you know. And if you can get that, because a lot of people can't, can they? And I've been in that boat where I've thought I've had to go to the other end of the world to find that, you know, that release, that kind of feeling of travel. But I've learned especially through this lockdown, I've not been able to go to too many places. It's made me realize how you can get that from your own country and how beautiful it is around where you are, and how you know, you are surrounded by a lot of nice stuff a lot of the time.
And that's the thing, sometimes when you talk to people, that's when they can say, oh, but I could never do what you do, I could never travel, or, you know, I could never go and do this, and then it's maybe some excuses like, oh well, I haven't got the money, or oh well, I've got constraints that keep me to here. And that's why it's really important to me to sort of say, but you don't have to. You can do it close to home. Exactly.
You can walk out of your front door and do it. You don't have to buy a plane ticket, so to speak.
Exactly. And sometimes we put our own barriers in place for ourselves, and it's actually about perception, isn't it? It's about thinking, well, that's only a barrier if I make it and obviously there are genuine barriers why people can't do things, but like I say, it's then about finding a way that, because a lot of the time we're seeking something, and when we're seeking something, it's not like there's only one thing that can provide us with what we're seeking. And sometimes we're fixated on, well, actually, if, like you said, with traveling, you might have got to the point where you thought, actually, I'm only gonna seek, say, freedom or travel or excitement or adventure if I do that. And once we're fixated on that, we're unable to see that there's other things that can also provide us.
And I think that's a good point, because that's what I've learned in myself. I was thinking I need to go, what are you looking at?
Can you see the bats?
Yeah, I've seen the bats before. Sorry to the listeners, but we're getting very distracted by the nature here.
Maybe you should only do these things inside.
And Nicky just spotted the bat going past as well, so there we go. What were we talking about? That's gone. Anyway, just talking about, like, you don't have to go far to do things, and that's something I've definitely learned in lockdown, is I've got many things to see in my own country, in my own small little Wales here. I've just been down to South Wales for 2 weeks doing some kind of voluntary work down there, and I just took myself out every evening and just seeing new stuff. It's just stunning. But like you say, you don't even have to do that, do you? You can just walk out your front door generally, or go for a drive.
Especially here, I wouldn't like to assume that anybody could do that where they live, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how easy that would be in a city, let's say, for example. Obviously I'm privileged enough to live.
Yeah. Well, this is
where
the
I
outdoor.
live.
This is the outdoor series. Anyway, this is what we're talking about, is the outdoor. I mean, I'm doing an indoor series for specific indoor activities, so it's always good to get out into your local area and try and find out what you can, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think it's important to realise that if you do think that you can't, you've got a barrier in place and you can't do that, open that sort of, open your perspective or widen your perspective to think, well, what is it that I'm wanting from that thing, and might I be able to get that from something else? And if I can, what would that be? Because if you ask yourself those questions, you're automatically going to move yourself away from only seeing, oh no, I can't do that because of that barrier, whatever that might be. And then you'll start thinking, well, how else might I be able to find my meditation or find something that can help?
Yeah. And I know some people more than others, they struggle with change as well, don't they? Like they don't like change too much or trying new things. They find it a bit difficult pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. And I see that as not a great thing, really, because I think if you get into too much of a comfort zone, you stop yourself from doing a lot of things, and like you said, that's what you do, isn't it? You like to kind of push yourself. You like to push yourself out of that comfort zone. And
yeah, but also, like I said, that's fluid. That comfort zone at times, that's different for different people, and the same, not just the comfort zone, but the same with the sense of adventure, or what somebody might think as being adventurous. That's different for different people, but it's also different within the same people. So for example, for me, when I'm feeling great and everything's going good and I'm just using the outdoors just because I love it, not necessarily because I need it, then what I might be doing might be quite extreme, and me going out of my comfort zone because everything's great and my comfort zone seems quite wide, I could go for a hike and jump in a lake, and that would seem really extreme. But then at other times in my life, depending on if I'm quite low or if I'm really struggling with my mental health, just getting out of the door and walking 10 minutes down the road will feel extreme. That will feel adventurous for me. So again, exactly like you're saying, although people struggle to change or put themselves out of their comfort zone, that doesn't have to be this huge leap. And actually, if you're trying to make it be this huge leap, it's probably going to have the opposite effect, because you're not going to be able to do that because it seems too scary. If for you, getting out of your door and walking around the block and saying hello to one of your neighbours is an adventure for you, because that would be very difficult for you to do on that particular day, then that's amazing. And if for somebody else that wouldn't even be given a second thought, and actually to them it would be going to meet a whole new group of people on an organised hike or something, which is quite extreme, then that's also amazing. It's about, I think, understanding yourself and not trying to push yourself so far that you won't end up doing it. Like the tiniest of steps can be the biggest achievement.
Absolutely.
And then once you've done that, then you think, oh wow, I just did that. What else might I be able to do?
What else can I do? Yeah, and that pushes you on to other things then, doesn't it?
Exactly, but like I said, that's so fluid, and I think we're going to get onto a story a little bit later, but the thing is that what you might be able to do in one period of your life might change. Life changes, different things happen, and we change in response to our experiences.
Definitely. The bat's flying in between us again.
That flew very really close to my head.
Oh, these bats are flying up and down the river now. This is crazy. Yeah, this is really nice. Okay, so why would you recommend Well, I asked a question. Why would you recommend this activity to others? But I guess for you, would be, why would you recommend, I don't know, trying new things and kind of, being adventurous close to home and stuff? I guess. How'd you?
I think we've just spoke a lot, haven't we, about. I guess we were more defining, what is adventure, and that's different within people and across different people. But why would I recommend that people do that? I think I'd say because you probably don't know your own potential until you try.
Yeah.
And it's only by doing those things that you'll begin to grow. And if there's certain things that you might need to heal from, if there's certain things that you want to change about yourself, about a behavior, maybe by chasing, I don't know if that's the right word, but by seeking that adventure in the way how I've described it, and putting yourself out of your comfort zone, however small that first step might be, that could be the first step to your whole life changing.
Yeah.
And hopefully for the better.
Yeah.
And like I said, it could be 1 step forward, 10 steps back, but you learn not to hide away and not let yourself do things, but to do the opposite. That it's not about not being scared about doing something. It's not about, a lot of people will have always said to me, I've got friends who think I'm crazy because of some of the places that I've been and all the rest of it. And it's not, again, and they'll say, oh, you're so brave. But that being brave, again, it doesn't have to come just from that. It's only through, or in my experience and what I think other people would get out of, I guess what I'm suggesting or recommending is you don't know what you can do until you've tried it.
Yeah.
And that first little step could be, the first step to the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And especially when I think, like I said, that I wouldn't have even been here by the time I hit 25 if I didn't take an initial first step. And I was so scared. I was so scared of the world, of myself, what I might do, and all of these things, that if I hadn't have done those things, where might I have been?
Where would you be now? Yeah. Yeah.
And that, I guess, that would be my strongest message. Why would I suggest that this could be something for other people, is if you're in a dark place and you do something that seems scary, or that you don't know if you can do, just try it. And even if it doesn't work that first time and you have to go back and reflect on it and think, well, actually maybe I tried too big and I should take a smaller step.
Yeah.
That's okay. But mainly because everybody's worth it.
Yeah.
Like, you're worth your own happiness, you're worth your own life taking potentially a different way to how it might have been heading.
Yeah. So the next question is, wondering if you've got a story of gratitude for us. Have you ever been grateful for the most simple things in life, or has there been an experience in your life where you've just basically felt really grateful for the most simple things?
I do, and it's a good job that I do have answers to all these questions, isn't it? Otherwise we'd just be sitting by the river. And I alluded to it not long ago where I said there'll be a story, and it's interesting. I mean, obviously a lot of what I've spoken about fills me with gratitude every day, because I'm now 35, and if I didn't think I'd live till I was 25, then to me every single day is something for me to be grateful for.
Yeah, sure.
But the actual story that I have, I'm not sure if when most people talk about stories of gratitude that might come from maybe a positive or a nice experience. And you mentioned earlier that traveling is amazing and it provides all these things and all these good things happen, but sometimes that's not the case. So my story of gratitude was actually an experience that I had about 5 years ago now, and I was traveling on my own in East Africa. I was in Tanzania, and I was kidnapped by four Tanzanian men. They'd sort of tricked me into the car, their fake taxis, and basically I was held in the car with them for around 45 minutes, and within that time they forced me to give them my PIN numbers. They took any money that I had on my possession. They took my they robbed me basically, but within that experience I was also held captive. And they also told me that they were going to take me to a house and make me phone home for somebody to send money for me. And so, as you can imagine, extremely traumatic. I wasn't hurt in any way except psychologically, luckily, because when I think about anything that could have happened, I was so completely powerless. Anything could have happened, and anything above and beyond what did happen would have been horrendous. And it was bad enough as it was, but I'm still very lucky that it wasn't any worse. The reason that makes me grateful, as much as it was an awful experience, and traveling has changed for me since, as you can imagine. Before that point, I'd only ever had, these amazing experiences that had changed my life, and I was so privileged to be able to experience them, the places that I'd seen, the people that I'd met, all of that. And the one thing that traveling always gave me was I always felt free. And I think, I don't know if that will ever come back now, because I have a sense of fear when I travel now that didn't exist in me before this encounter. But the reason I'm grateful for that is because it opened my eyes to the way that people live, and how privileged I am to be able to have had the life that I've had, to live where I live, to live in a country where the rights and the freedoms that we have don't exist in other countries. And a lot of people aren't aware of that, maybe because they've never seen it. And we take for granted what we get from living in a Western society, for example. And a lot of people, when that happened to me, were understandably very angry, and they said things like, they're the scum of the earth, how can they do things like that to people? But hand on my heart, from when that experience happened and since, I have never felt anger towards those men, because I think it's not as simple as I'm a victim and they're a perpetrator. Because when I came home, that money that they had taken out of my account, I made a phone call to my bank with a crime reference number, and all of that money got put into my bank
back again,
just because of the systems that we have in place, because of where we're from, and the place, just because of where I was born. And I know nothing. That wasn't personal. They didn't target me as Nicky, as I deserved it or anything. I was a means to an end for them, and I don't know what's happened in their 4 lives that have led them to make those choices.
You could have been anyone basically, and it's a way of life for them out there, isn't it? It's survival at the end of the day for them. And
I've seen poverty. I've done a lot of work with the homeless in this country. I've seen poverty in other countries, but I've never seen poverty that was so primitive. And that's man-made. That's a system that in countries in Africa, with the way that some people have to live, it doesn't have to be that way, because we don't live like that. And that was the thing for me. I have no idea what they've had to experience. So why hate them? Why feel anger towards them? Because who's the real victim? The lives that they may have led, and the experiences that they may have had, the corruption that about in African governments. Maybe they feel like they didn't have any other choice. And then as a white tourist, you know, walking down the street,
Yeah.
who's to say that they didn't feel that anger and hate towards me because of the freedom and the privilege that I have to be walking down a street in their, you know, it's just, it's not as simple. And the reason that's made me so grateful is because it really made me realize that a lot of the time we look at people who might be making certain choices and we've got no idea of what it is that's led them.
No.
And I know that other people experience, you know, terrible things and don't end up making the same choices, but again, it's not as simple as that. And it, as much as I've struggled with that experience and still do, it's still really made me just so grateful for where I live, where I'm from, where I was born, who I have around me.
Yeah.
And the other reason I think I wasn't angry is because I think I saw this maybe in their eyes or felt it. I don't know really how to explain it, but they, to me, like, they have to make that choice to do that to another human being on a daily basis. You know, this is a common occurrence in that country where this is something that does happen to people that go there. You know, it's almost set up like a little bit of sort of organised crime,
basically. Yeah.
For them, obviously, to make money, maybe to feed their families, who knows.
Yeah.
The fact that they have to do that every day.
Yeah.
To me, their souls inside are not free. So why would I need any type of anger, revenge or hatred towards them? Because that, to me, is...
Yeah, you almost feel sorry for them in a way rather than anger, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I spoke to a guy, a Canadian policeman. He's on a podcast we did, and he had 2 near-death experiences within the space of 4 days of each other. And he had exactly the same. His gratitude story was that them days, he said, I'm just grateful that them days have just made me so grateful for what I've got now, my family, my kids, just the lifestyle I live. He said, if it wasn't for them days, I don't think I would have really appreciate what I've got. You know, it's really changed my life, even though it's a really bad thing to happen to me. It's, on the flip side, it's really, really made me grateful for everything I've got. So, you know, kind of same but different, you know.
We just take so much for granted, and really, instead of, you know, being angry and trying to blame them as individuals, we need change. You know, they need change, because maybe if they lived in, you know, a governmental, is that a word? A government system that allowed for them to have more opportunities and not to be kept in these, you know, poverty and these conditions, maybe there wouldn't be. Yeah. Maybe they wouldn't have to be doing that.
No, I'm pretty sure most of these guys don't want to be doing what they're doing. It's just, you were there, wrong time, wrong place, white person in that kind of country, you know, and it's happened at the end of the day, and these things happen, don't they? And as travellers, we sometimes put ourselves in these situations, you know. I've done it myself, and I mean, we try and do it for the experience, don't we? And you've had a bad one at that time, and it's really affected you, but on the spin of that, like you said, it's made you really grateful for everything you've got. So it's you're kind of trying to get the good out of the bad in a way. Well, I could sit here for days talking to you, Nicky. It's getting dark now, isn't it? We can barely see each other sat here now. This is really it's a shame, because it's really getting dark now.
Just
actually,
the bats flying past every
we can see all the bats going past still. I'm coming up to the last section of the podcast anyway, which is called Turn the Table, and that's where you get to ask me a question if you want. You don't have to, but if you do have a question, now's your time.
I would love to. I would like to know, what is your favourite dinosaur?
Oh my God. Is that a real question? Yeah?
Yeah, I actually really want to know. But I do have another question.
The thing is, I don't know many names of dinosaurs. I like pterodactyls because they can fly.
Is that your favourite?
No, I think my favourite one probably is the big one, with the big round one with the big long neck, and it eats leaves.
Is it like a
I don't know, that's up to you to tell me, because I just told you I'm horrendous with dinosaur names.
I know which one you mean, though.
Do you know, only because it eats the plants and it just looks
in
quite
Jurassic
peaceful.
Park.
Generally, yeah.
I think it begins with a D.
I'm going to be quite honest with you. I'm not very good at dinosaurs, in all honesty.
Maybe you should. You should really go on a mission to seek out. And
well, I told you today I want to get to know birds and that more, and the whistles
well,
and
there
all
you
that
go.
kind of
That's
thing.
where they came from.
That's kind of dinosaur-ish. Maybe that'll count.
So.
Oh, that isn't the question.
Well, it can be, unless I'm allowed.
Yeah, go on. You can have two, as you're a friend. Yeah.
I would like to know what your reasons are for doing these podcasts. What is it that you want people to get out of the podcast that you're doing?
Well, I guess the idea of it was I just reflected on myself in a way. I was kind of realizing what I used myself to keep myself sane without kind of going to see anyone about it or taking any medication or whatever, because I've been quite down in my times, and I've been quite a person where I keep it to myself quite a lot, and so I've kind of got myself through a lot of things sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just realized that I used cycling a hell of a lot to take my mind off things, without even realizing it, kind of just automatically getting out on my bike and just feeling 10 times better when I get back. Do you know what I mean? And then I realized I had a lot of indoor hobbies as well that I was kind of, if I couldn't get out, or whether I was physically unable to, or whether I just couldn't be bothered going out, or I always had little hobbies and interests that I would have indoors as well. So it just kind of got me interested and intrigued as to kind of what other people do and what other people use as their tool to kind of keep themselves sane outdoors and indoors. So and what I want people to get out of it is to hopefully get new interests and hobbies for themselves that they might not have thought of before. And if you might not have been into, say, hooping before I'm talking to you might not even have known where it was, but after listening to you, someone might think, that sounds quite good actually, I might try that. So to try and give people ideas and for them to help them with their own mental health, because sometimes it is quite hard, isn't it, thinking what can I do, how can I take my mind off things, and you might not think of that specific thing, and you might listen to these podcasts and just someone talking about something might change your mind about that activity or interest, or just that kick up the hoop you need. No pun intended.
Yeah.
And that's it really, and it's just general interest in what people enjoy, because there's loads of people out there with some different interests and hobbies, and I just thought it might make quite a interesting podcast kind of subject.
I think it's amazing.
So that's it.
Yeah,
so I'm hoping everyone's going to enjoy them, and I just hope the listeners enjoy what we've done today with sitting outside. I don't know how this is going to sound, by the way, until I come to edit it and all of that, but I'm kind of hoping it sounds pretty good. I like the sounds of nature, and these podcasts are kind of what that's about, bringing yourself outdoors and stuff. So I think once now the weather's getting a bit better and I'm able to meet up with people and that, and if I'm able to get over to them or they're able to get over to me, then it'd be quite nice to do this a bit more often actually.
Yeah.
And I was just saying to Nicky before, I just thought when I came down here I should have set up a camera, so we could do a visual podcast as well, so maybe they could be coming up in the future as well. We'll see. So, but yeah, my toes are like ice now. I don't know about yours. I'm pretty chilly. We're talking like it's all beautiful here, but it's getting quite cold. So I think we're going to wrap it up. That's the end of that anyway. So thank you, Nicky, for your time. It's been great chatting to you, and I know you're a busy little bee at the moment, so I really appreciate you taking the time out for us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So and for showing me this special little place. It's a very nice little place. I'll could imagine chilling down here for a little while, maybe when the sun's out though. All right, Nicky, nice one.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, and yeah, have a nice weekend.
You too.
Take care. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Well, there you go. My first ever podcast with a close friend. Nicky chose a great place for me to do my first face-to-face outdoor podcast. So thanks, Nicky. I hope you guys enjoyed the sounds of nature that surrounded us, and I apologise for getting distracted by the birds and bats from time to time. It was pretty hard concentrating at times for obvious reasons. I'd just like to thank Nicky for speaking out so openly to you guys about her past and rather unstable childhood. I know it takes a lot of courage to speak out about such things, so thank you, Nicky, and to all of my guests who speak openly about their past and present problems. Given that I know Nicky fairly well, I know that everything she shared with us in this podcast is in the hope that it helps at least one person out there to have faith in themselves and believe that they can make a change for the better, no matter how scary it seems. And like she says, you don't need to go to extremes to find adventure. You'll be amazed what's around locally if you look closely enough. Thank you once again for tuning in. If you want to join us over on Facebook and Instagram, then search for My Meditation Podcast. I'll leave the links to both in the show notes, as well as the link to the official My Meditation Podcast channel, which you're more than welcome to subscribe to. The Facebook and Instagram page offer positive, inspiring and light-hearted quotes, photos and videos designed to bring a little happiness into your life. If you found any value from this podcast, I'd highly appreciate it if you could rate it and review it. And if you're feeling extra passionate, then please feel free to share it with the world and spread the word. It all helps the channel grow, which in turn means we can reach more people, which means helping more people. These podcasts are getting released every fortnight, so I hope you can join us for the next, and who knows, it could be about an interesting hobby or activity that could possibly be a life changer for you. Until then, take care and have fun, folks. Peace.